Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And this week, we're going to tackle topics like changing friendships, being friends with an ex, and when your partner finds your happiness annoying. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners. We are just two people who had microphones and then started putting this out into the world.
Yeah, I didn't even have a microphone before this. So like I had to like go out and buy one, and then
we had to use Spencer's for a long time.
Yeah. This is all to say, please take our advice as you see fit. We are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs on the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. Quickly, before we get into this week's check-in topic, I want to remind folks that we have changed things up over on our Patreon. So we have some new rewards. One of them is if you subscribe to support us for $10 a month, even if you just do that for 1 month, you get access to our entire back catalog of weekly bonus episodes and a live that Sam and I will be hosting every month. We're going to do like AMAs, Q&As, have special guests, play games, whatever, all live once a month. And this month, we're debuting this on Wednesday, June 22nd. We're going to do like a little JBU Pride celebration and take your questions live through a live stream. So did I explain that all okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm excited to hang out. We haven't celebrated Pride together since, 2008, 19?
Yeah, I don't know.
Pre-pandemic?
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you have some burning questions, if you want to hang out with us, if you want to support us for all of our free content that we put out there in the world, you can just subscribe for a one-time fee of $10 to join us, or a monthly or annual subscription. Check it out at patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
Yes. And also, if $5 or $10 a month isn't in your budget, that's also totally okay. We still love you. We still love to have you listening to the main event. We just really also we also appreciate people who can and are able to support us in a sustainable way. So thank you for listening and for supporting us if that's something that's in your budget.
So this week's check-in topic is from a letter writer whose name was Check Me Out, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from incredibly unchill.
Oh.
And this letter writer writes, hello, Sam and Sierra. Thank you both so much for your words and your work. I think this is a check-in topic. Sierra, I believe you've said on past episodes that your wife is best friends with an ex. 2, actually. So my question is, how do you handle a partner staying in close contact with an ex? How do you navigate that? Have you ever been able to think about that and stay cool? For me, it has really been depending on the day, and some days I really struggle. Any advice would mean the world to me and my new good true love. Gracias. All right, my darling letter writer, thank you so much for writing this check-in topic. Yes, this is a lived experience for me. But I think it's also important to say, in my scenario, these are exes of like a decade past, sure. And the friendships have been very much established and tried and tested and true. And they're some of the best people in my wife and I's social circle. So not when I talk about like how easy or difficult this scenario is, I think that context is important because this definitely can be challenging. It can really trigger a lot of insecurity in me and or you, general you, because I think that we're often taught, especially in this like very assumed monogamous society, that exes or the fact that our significant others have history is a threat to our present. we've been taught so ingrained. It's been so ingrained that everything is a comparison to us, that everything is a threat to us, that like this past ex was obviously better than us, like how could it not be a threat to us, And I think that we are all really susceptible to those cognitive distortions, the lies that our brain tells us when we feel insecure.
Yeah.
So I guess my first piece of advice would just be to examine that cognitive distortion. I really love that phrase because it's a lie that our brain is telling us that our relationship is threatened by this past relationship, even though that past relationship is over and there's a present one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that examining the stories that we're telling ourselves as this stuff is coming up for us and actually like literally being like, okay, what's the evidence for this story and what's the evidence against this story can be super helpful. So it's like, oh, I'm having anxiety because my partner is going and hanging out with their best friend who's also their ex, which means what? Right? Like,
right.
What is that? What is the thing that experience is telling you? Is it that they're going to leave you? Is it that they're still in love with their ex? Is it that somehow your relationship is less important because they've had other types of relationships? And again, being like, okay, well, what's the evidence to support this story that I'm telling myself? Like, what are the actual facts on the ground? And then what's the evidence against this thing that I'm telling myself?
Yes.
And when I do stuff like this, like, because I also have these moments of anxiety, right, that come up and are like, I'm telling myself a particular story about what's happening. Often what I find is that like, I have a hard time finding the evidence for this story. And I have a much easier time finding evidence that like goes against this story. And then I can look at it and be like, okay, well, evidence says that this thing that I'm telling myself is happening isn't actually happening. So what can I, even just articulating it and getting it like into the world and as opposed to just in like a mess of stuff in my head can help me be like, okay, well, I don't have a whole lot of evidence to support the idea that my partner is going to leave me for this ex. So I guess I need to figure out how I can believe what's actually happening. Or I can look at the actual things on the things that are happening rather than saying like, what's the story? What's the interpretation of this that's really affecting me?
I'm so glad you said it that way too, especially about like the evidence that it's not going to happen. Because for me, I think that my first reaction to that is like, well, I can find evidence everywhere because my insecurity is permeating, For
sure.
Or maybe it's a past experience where your partner did cheat on you or you were the ex and you wanted to get back with them or whatever, I think it's easy for us to find evidence to reinforce our fears. But to that, I would remind me and our listeners that like our fears and our feelings aren't always evidence, right? Our feelings aren't always, just because you feel insecure doesn't mean that insecurity is a real threat in your life,
Yep.
I give my feelings way too much credit,
For sure.
especially in these situations. Because like you said, if you look for the evidence to the contrary of your fears, that is much more abundant most times, right? Like, oh, well, how long have they not been together? Do they even like each other like that anymore? No.
Yeah.
What ended their relationship? And why did this new partner come to you? Like, is your relationship going well? Is it actually threatened? I think that's what I had to do, letter writer, for unpacking my insecurities. And I definitely had them. I for sure had them. It is my knee-jerk reaction to be like, oh no, this love isn't trustworthy. It couldn't be this good. It couldn't possibly be not under threat, I guess. But
For sure.
when I was in those moments of insecurity, I would just tell myself like, okay, what is real here? What was real was this was actually a friendship. This was a friendship, They had done the work to be friends, and I could see how these friendships were enriching my wife's life and not in a way that meant she was not enriched by me, I think it goes back to the scarcity thing. Like, why would I want my wife to not have friends? Why would I think that her friends would be, her loving her friends would mean that she would love me like less well or something?
Yeah.
I think I had to like call myself out on my lies or my what my fear was lying to me. This is totally real. And like, I appreciate what you wrote, letter writer, about like, some days I'm fine and other days I really struggle. And like, that is fair. That's the head and heart work that we haven't mentioned in a while, right? Where your heart tells you one thing and then you got to like put in the head work, Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even as you're like making that list of like, is this like, what's the evidence for and what's the evidence against? Like, one of the other things that I can do is like, okay, well, where's the source of this evidence? And it's like, is that a trustworthy source? Because then it's often like the evidence for is like, everyone secretly hates me. And then it's like, well, where's the evidence of that? Like, what's the source of that evidence? And it's like, oh, my deep-seated anxiety that's been with me since I was like born. Yeah. Cool. I know that anxiety is
this friendship. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. It's like, that anxiety is not a reliable source. Like, and I know that because that anxiety has told me a lot of things that aren't actually true. So cool. I know that anxiety is going to come up. I can't necessarily get rid of it. Like, it's always present. And I also know that it's not actually a really reliable place of information for me. So I tend to be like, yep, I see that. That's familiar. I know that this is trying to protect me, and I know better than to believe the lies that my anxiety tells me, because I've believed them before and they've turned out to be lies.
Right.
So
I think in terms of like moving forward, I would also encourage you to talk to your partner about this. And I'm all about like admitting what embarrasses us, say like, hey, this is embarrassing, but I feel insecure sometimes about this. I know that you haven't given me reason to. I know that this person doesn't want you, but for some reason I feel insecure, and I'm wondering if we can work through that together. That is something I have legitimately done with my wife, with a relationship that she has that I am not intellectually threatened by. Sure. I know that relationship is just a friendship, and yet insecurities come up and we need things. Humans need things. Humans need reinforcements. And I think in that scenario, I said something like, I know this isn't real, but my fear tells me it is. And so she helped me work through that. And then we also like made a plan to like hang out with that person together. You know what I mean? So that I could like normalize it in my head. Because again, our brains create patterns that we're used to. My brain was used to the thought pattern of like, this is a threat. This is something's going to go wrong. Something's wrong here. And so I needed to repave that brain path with new experiences and new thoughts. And I did that through practice and application. And so I guess this is maybe my last piece of advice is like, these thoughts can change, right? You can create new thought habits.
For sure.
And your new thought habit might be, instead of like, this is a threat, it's like, oh, that person makes really good chili or whatever. I don't know.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. Like humanizing the person for sure. And being like, and also that person, talks through while they're chewing all the time too.
Or
right?
to
literally take away some of the power.
Yeah. Now I see why my current partner doesn't want to be with that person. It allows you to make space for the actual reality instead of just the fear-based one that we live in our heads.
For sure. And you're not a bad person for feeling this way either, right?
No, oh my God.
Sometimes my anxiety gets into this like vicious cycle because I'm having a feeling about having the anxiety, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And now I'm feeling anxious about feeling anxious. And then it's just like all of these different things. This is not an uncommon stressor to have, right? And this is not, there are a lot of lies that we've been socialized around about monogamy and about people being friends with their ex, and like about people's inability to control their urges or to control their feelings about, like, it's just, this is a lot of lies that we've been told. And like, of course we believe it, right? And of course that belief then creates this anxiety in us. So you're not like fucked up for having these feelings about your partner and them being friends with their ex, right? What we can do is recognize, like, yep, those feelings are coming up. They're not bad. They just are. They exist. They're part of me. And I get to make choices about how I want to respond to those feelings. And it sounds like you're doing a great job of responding well to those feelings. And there are also things that you can do to help continue on that journey of responding well. So right. I don't want anyone to take this and be like, if you're having feelings about your ex or your partner being friends with your ex, you're a bad person. It is more of this idea of like, yeah, that sounds really normal to me. And what else can we do? Because that one's not working super well for us. Yeah. So let's find a different thing to try.
Yeah. And like, to my experience, those insecurities, you know, I'm 4 years into this relationship. It has been proven, those insecurities have been proven wrong repeatedly by my wife's actions and or by my own mental processing, as Sam is saying. But they were there. They are there. They're very real.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't say anything to me about me as a significant other or as a person, as Sam was saying.
Right.
All right. Thanks so much for that check-in topic.
That was great.
Yeah. Let's get into our letters. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cute.
Okay. This letter comes from Jealous and Insecure, whose pronouns are she, her, and who is writing from middle school Feelings Town. Hi, Sam and Sierra. I love you and I love your podcast. Thank you for doing what you do. My question is about a friendship dynamic. I'm a 36-year-old woman. My whole life, I've been kind of a nerd. As such, I've never had a large group of friends. Instead, I have a handful of friends that I'm very loyal to individually, who I've met through various life experiences. I have a best friend from high school, a couple friends from college, a couple friends from my career, etc. I'm generally satisfied with these friendships, though age, the pandemic, and being childless among friends who now all have kids has made most of my friendships tougher to maintain. Anyway, on to the issue. Last summer, I got married and had a bachelorette party for myself. It was a trip to Miami. I invited a handful of my closest friends, most of whom aren't friends with each other, but they all showed up for me. It was a great time, and I felt super special. My best friend from kindergarten, we'll call her Lauren, she, her, has never really had a robust social life on her own. She didn't get a college experience and married her high school boyfriend in her early 20s. When we were younger, I'd invite her to college parties, etc. But at this age, I have mostly one-off friendships with people that I've maintained on my own. Since my bachelorette party, she has decided to co-opt my college friends as friends of her own. She messages all of us at once, tries to organize social events, and now one of my other friends just includes her in plans. I'm really bothered by the situation. I want Lauren to have an enriching social life, but not at the expense of my own. My college friends and I hang out like twice a year at this point, and now she wants to be part of that. I hate that I'm bothered by this, but something about it just seems weird. I don't invite myself to the social things she does without me. I told Lauren about a trip I was going on in a few weeks with someone else, and she was mad that I hadn't included her. Do you have any advice for how to deal with this? I feel like there's no way for me to turn the ship around without cutting her out of things, which seems mean and rude. But I also want to be able to hang out with different friends without her. Am I being selfish? What do I do?
All right, Jealous and Insecure, thank you so much for writing and for listening. Yeah, this is a little bit of a tricky situation. Sam and I don't know like the full context of everything. Like we don't know the nuance of how you guys are interacting or the energy that she brings to this group, or like in what way she was mad that you did include her with on this trip. Like that seems like unreasonable to me. And also I think that I want to just bring some more perspective that Sam and I do have into this letter, which is that we get hundreds of letters from folks who talk about how hard it is to meet people, to meet friends, to make new friends, especially in your 30s. How hard it is, how inorganic it feels, how isolated people are right now, especially in this time of a pandemic and this virtual time where we're very much divided from our neighbors, etc. So I want to say that your feelings are valid, and I agree with your assessment of like, you know, you don't like that you're bothered by this, but something feels weird. Like something is definitely being triggered here. Like I see that and feel that, and I want to make space for that and affirm that, like, yeah, feelings are coming up. Something feels threatened right now. And also I'm coming at this from the perspective of somebody who is also 36 and who also doesn't have a lot of friends, like doesn't have a lot of people that I see regularly in my life. And I have been that new party, you know, at the Miami bachelorette party, you know, like even Sam's, that was literally how I met most of your extended friends, like to paint a picture about Sam and I's life. Sam has a bigger friend group than me, people that he met through college and people that he acquired through his marriage, like Peter's friends that Peter met in college. And lucky for him and lucky for me, they're all really cool people. And I, because of how much I moved around and traveled for work, like I didn't know a lot of these people until Sam and Peter got married. And I remember going to their bachelor party and being like, oh my God, who are these people? They are cool. I want to be friends with them.
They are all very cool.
And I felt simultaneously like an outsider and also like, not an outsider in a bad way, but like, you know, we crave human connection and we crave friendships. And I saw that as an opportunity not to co-opt Sam's friends, to use the word that you use, jealous and insecure, but to meet people. So I just want to make space for an alternative interpretation of your friend's actions. I don't know if she has like this intentional plan to like take over your life and take your friends from you, or like, you know, I don't think that there's a malicious aspect happening here, or like even like a conscious one. I think she probably feels like she met these cool people because you brought all these cool people together. And she wants to hang out with them and you. Again, I don't know what the circumstances are of her being mad at you for going on a trip. Like that doesn't seem necessarily like an appropriate emotional response. And I also want to validate, like, think your feelings are real. Your feelings are coming up right now that something feels threatened, that maybe the friendship dynamics that you have had for your first 20 years of these friendships or whatever are being changed or challenged. And that's bringing up some feelings, and that's real. Like I relate to that, even though I said this story about, you know, like whatever. I just want to say I relate to those feelings. But yeah, maybe there's just an organic change happening and not necessarily like a malicious one. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, given what you told us about how your friendships have changed quite a bit over the course of time, and that you're feeling less connected to folks, that there may be sort of this idea of scarcity, right? That like your friendships have already gone from being maybe more robust to being something that you're sort of really trying to maintain, but that, you know, you're only seeing them every, twice a year or whatever it is. And so I think that like that idea of friendships changing and feeling sort of disconnected to the people that you really love and appreciated, can really make it easy to feel threatened by somebody else coming in and trying to also have a little bit of that thing that already feels like it's so scarce, right? That idea of like,
real. That's so real.
Right? I already don't get to see these people as much as I would like to, and now you're trying to hone in on this, like horn in on this, I think. Horn in.
not
Great.
horn.
You're trying to get in on this action. Like, I think that I can really empathize with like how that response or that reaction to what's going on would be the reaction that you're having. And I would encourage you to think about the friendships that you do have as having the capacity to be expanded, right? That your friend being friends with your friends doesn't mean that your friends are not as much friends with you, if that makes sense. I think that whole sentence really happened.
Beautiful. Poetic, really.
No, and I think about like, Sierra had this great example of like coming into my friend group, but I'm also thinking about like, I've had the same best friend for years, since middle school. I'm just going to say his name because like, why not?
We definitely have talked about him on the show before.
Okay, great. His name is Merrick. And there was a time when Sierra was living in Minneapolis where like we all just hung out with each other because like Sierra's my best friend, Merrick's my best friend, and then we all just sort of like were in relationship with each other. And Merrick and Sierra also started hanging out without me. Yeah. And I will say that there were like feelings of like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be doing this. Like I'm
the common
center
thread here. Yeah.
This is supposed to be like a wheel and spoke, not like a network. Like you're all supposed to come to each other through me. But what I realized was that like their relationship didn't in any way detract from my relationship with either of them, right? It just enhanced their relationship with each other. And yeah, feelings of jealousy can absolutely come up. And they did come up when I was like, oh, you're going to happy hour and I can't come and you're going without me. Like that was like, oh, like the inner child in me was like, everyone hates me and they don't want to be friends with me anymore. And the evidence that I saw was that Sierra and Merrick just created this beautiful friendship with each other and that they also still wanted to be friends with me. And we did things together and they did things separately. And it was really helpful. And I think what was important for me also was to recognize, like, what else did I need out of this situation, right? Like, great that we're all friends, great that we're all hanging out. And sometimes I just needed to talk to Merrick, or sometimes I just needed to talk to Sierra. And so what I had to get good at was asking for what I needed, right? To say, hey, Merrick, I would love a little Merrick and Sam time this weekend. Just the two of us. Can we make that happen?
Right.
Or like, hey, Sierra, I really want to talk this thing through with you. Can we just do the two of us together? And then if Merrick's like, oh, cool, can I invite Sierra? I could be like, actually, I would love it if it would just be the two of us.
Right.
Right. And recognizing that me doing that isn't me being a bad friend. It's just that in this moment, what I needed was some one-on-one time with this person because I have a person who has needs, right? As much as I'd like to pretend that I don't.
Right.
And so it did getting practiced at being more intentional about like being okay with the idea that friendships are going to have different dynamics to them and that I'm going to need different things at different times. I think allowed me to spend less time worrying about whether or not Sierra and Merrick were hanging out without me and more time being like, okay, well, what do I need to feel connected to these two? And does it need to be hanging out with both of them, one of them, whatever it is? So that's something that I would think about, right? Like how practiced do you feel at identifying some of those things that are coming up for you, some of those needs that might be happening, and how capable do you feel of asking for those things, given all of the stuff you've talked about in terms of being a childless person and being friends with people who have kids and all of the stuff that comes in being in your 30s and trying to maintain friendships,
it's so hard.
Which is challenging for sure.
And it's challenging for this friend of yours too, which is why she's probably taking this opportunity to be like, oh my gosh, human connection. Let me act on it. You know, I also, as you were talking, I thought of another thing of like, I think it's important to remember that people maintain friendships and relationships in different preferred ways. Like, you know, an easy way to categorize it would be like introverts and extroverts, right? People who, or people who like to socialize in big groups, people who like to socialize in one-on-ones, whatever. And just make space for the fact that like we all have different social preferences. And also a lot of times those social preferences and time and shared history sort of like carve out what we perceive as a relationship structure, a way in which we're supposed to be friends, a way in which we're supposed to hang out. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, you and I think for a long time, our friendship structure was you and I hanging out one-on-one, 4 times a year or whatever it was.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's right.
And over time, that assumed structure sort of broke down because A, we wanted to spend more time together, and B, we incorporated each other into each other's lives, And I want to point that out because I think maybe it's the Gemini in me that like wants to control everything, or like wants to, I don't know, maybe it's the emotional vulnerability goblin that I am, that I want that one-on-one time. And like, I want to feel intimate with people. But I had to learn that a change in the structure of my friendship wasn't a threat to the integrity of it. Little things come to mind, like, learning how to hang out with a friend and their significant other at the same time, learning how to hang out with a friend and other people, or having a social group change, it like, I think about your wedding party crew, it was you, me, and Merrick in my mind for a while. And then that social structure expanded. And that change was natural. And, we always have that, the 3 of us, we always have the bitch and mimosa crew. Backstory included, or excluded, I should say. And also, I guess what I'm trying to point out is that I too have felt resistance to what I thought was a structural change, but instead it was just an evolution, right? I just want to say to our letter writer, I think it's natural to be afraid that the integrity of your friendships, or the foundation of these friend groups, is being altered. It's okay to feel uneasy about that because you're not sure where that evolution is going to take you. But it is also can be a very natural one. The way we hang out with our friends can changes over time. And adding somebody to a party might not necessarily be as detrimental as like your fear might be telling you.
Yeah, for sure. And if your friend is responding poorly to you spending time with your other friends, right? Like this example of you were planning a trip with somebody and she was really upset that you didn't invite her. Part of asking for what you need is also about sort of articulating boundaries around things as well. So I don't think you would be a bad person for you telling your friend like, hey, I really appreciate that you want to come, and I'm intentionally trying to spend some one-on-one time with this person.
Yeah.
So if you want to hang out with them, you are welcome to. And we could even plan something, the 3 of us, to get drinks or to go to dinner or to watch a movie together or whatever it is. And like this trip is really important to me because I really do want to spend some one-on-one time with this person. And you're not a bad person for saying that, right? Like even if she's upset, even if her feelings are hurt, even if she's reading something into that may not be there, that doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, right? Like it's okay for you to say those things to your friends and to invite this new friend into the friend group and work to figure out where the boundaries and edges are of how involved she can be in every one of those relationships, right? So it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yes.
Either she's not part of it or she's everywhere all the time. And part of being friends is about having these types of conversations with each other around what we need, what we want, what our preferences are, and figuring out how we're going to live in the reality that like those things are going to not necessarily align all the time.
I'm so glad you said that, and to like wrap it up in alignment with that, like I also think that this new friend to the group has to accept that there's shared history there that she's not a part of, and that you can. It may be uncomfortable, but it's not an all or nothing thing. Like you talked about, like turning the ship around without like sinking it. You can say, hey, me and the college girls are doing a college girl reunion. like we're just doing a reunion with the however many of us. We want to do a trip to commemorate that. I want you to know that's happening. And I'm excited to hang out with you when we get back, or whatever way that conversation manifests. I think about these friend groups that I've mentioned that Sam and I are in. I as the new party, that as the one who wasn't in Minneapolis as much, who had a job where I traveled, who didn't have a social group like Sam's in college, I have to accept that was like my life path, and that Sam has years of experience with these people that like that I have to respect as a mutual acting party in this friendship. You know what I mean? And that if they do like a friend trip to a cabin, that's not a threat to me. That's an enrichment to their friendship and an honoring of their tradition or whatever. So it is a two-way street is how I wanted to end on that, is that like Sam said it really beautifully about like, this is what it means to be in intimate friendships with each other as adults, is like being practiced in talking about what we're doing respectfully and with boundaries. And I hope that after hearing this, you feel heard, loved, affirmed, maybe given a couple new perspectives to apply to how to navigate this. And also, I hope that this friend, when you do apply your boundaries or when you do discuss plans, your friend meets you with the same respect that you are, an effort that you're putting out there.
Absolutely.
All right, my darling. It's a lonely, lonely world out there. You're lucky to have some good friends. I hope that this helps.
Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
All right, our next letter comes to us from Naive Pie, whose pronouns are he, him, who's writing to us from the void. Void. I almost didn't say the D on that one. The void.
I heard it.
Hi, Sam and Sierra. I found the podcast fairly recently, but it's been keeping me sane on my early morning starts at work, so thank you for that. I'm writing because I just found out that my ex, she, her, who I still have feelings for, has started seeing other people. We were in a long-distance relationship for around a year, and after a strained weekend away, we sat and had a serious talk about whether the relationship was something that either of us really wanted right now. For context, she was starting a nursing degree at university in a few weeks and felt like she couldn't put in the time that it deserved. And I was struggling to be mentally present when we were together. And in the end, we decided it would be best for us to remain friends, as we still cared for each other a lot, but realized being in a relationship wasn't the best idea for us at the time. Fast forward 9 months, and we still meet up occasionally to hang out and catch up on each other's lives, such as how is university life treating her and our experiences with our respective therapists. You know, light, fluffy conversations, LOL. And it's obvious to me that my feelings towards her have not changed at all. However, last time we met up, she started talking about this guy that she has been seeing. Now, I know we agreed to be friends, but I can't help but feel jealous, especially when she's now in another long-distance relationship, even though the distance was a big factor in why we broke up. So my question is, do you have any advice on dealing with this jealousy and moving on from someone you still care deeply about while remaining friends? Keep up the great show, Naive Pie.
Cute. I love the keep up the great show.
I know. Thanks. We will. I hope.
Yeah, right? Oh, who knows? Thank you, Naive Pie, for writing into us. And it sounds like you are in a pickle, for sure. I think that your experience here is a great example of why it can be really challenging to remain friends with an ex, even if that breakup was completely amicable.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it was like, yep, this is the right thing for the best of us. Because just because there's a break in the type of relationship we have doesn't mean that the feelings just go away, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's not still stuff happening. Our hearts don't work in sort of those clearly defined lines that our brains are often so capable of doing. So I'm sorry that you're feeling these feelings of jealousy, and I'm sorry that you're experiencing this in a way that's like, well, she said long distance was the thing that she wouldn't do, and now she's doing a long distance thing. So maybe it wasn't long distance. Maybe it was me. Like those types of patterns of thought that come up when we're in a situation where we still have feelings for somebody who is beginning to see other people. So it's a sticky spot to be in. So I'm sorry that you're feeling it.
Yes, I agree. And here comes the tough love. We're changing it up. Normally I'm like, feelings, and then Sam says facts.
It's good. We got to keep them on their toes. We've been doing this for 196 episodes, so we got to mix it up sometimes.
Did you know 200 episodes is coming up? That's wild. And we're doing nothing to celebrate it.
No, I was like, we should probably talk about that. Huh?
Yeah. Okay, so here's my tough love. And I say this as someone who 100% empathizes with the position you're in, and someone who's like able to say these things from the cushy ivory tower of I'm not emotionally involved. Like, I think we should point that out, is that like so often we get clarity from folks who aren't in our situation because they're not bogged down by the emotions of it, or by the desires, the hurt, the rejection, all of those things tend to like muddy things up for us. And Sam and I, up in our little ivory tower, or what sort of like structure would we be in?
Oh God, I don't know. I feel like it would have to be queer in some way.
Yeah, a rainbow tower. Here we go.
A rainbow tower. There we go.
And Sam has like a Rapunzel wig.
Absolutely, I do.
Yes.
And also the tower itself is rainbow and sparkly.
There we go. Okay, great. So we're up here in our like cushy place. Sam has a wig on. I have a bathrobe on, like a really fuzzy one. Like we are not in the discomfort that you're in, so we can
no, we're very
clearly
comfortable.
See slippers and all. We can clearly see that this is an unsafe situation for you to be in if you carry on without any heart boundaries or new emotional understandings to this friendship. And by that, I mean, like, I love that you guys are friends. I love that you have maintained this love and respect for each other, but it's not really going to be a sustainable friendship if you are always secretly wanting her to be with you, right? Or like, if you're always wishing for this relationship to be different than it is, that doesn't really feel like a safe place for you emotionally. And like, it's been 9 months. You two have consciously kept up your friendship by maintaining to see each other every once in a while. And she is doing the thing that we do when we're single, which is like moving on, exploring other options. And I'm wondering, just in general, like, we don't know the details of your life, but I'm wondering if you are too. Like, what have you done to help reinforce, your singlehood, or like reinforce the fact that this relationship is over and that you're not like in a waiting room of your life waiting for this relationship to come back to you? Curious about that. But I guess most importantly, I think if you hear anything from this letter other than we love you and empathize with you, is who your ex moves on with and how they move on, like how they date after you, is not in any direct correlation with your relationship with them in the past. Meaning, because she broke up with you because long distance was hard, doesn't mean she's not going to get into a new long distance relationship. They're not related. We like to think that they are, and we like to think that they are a reflection of who we are and the value of the relationship that we had. And they're not. And so I validate your pain. You know what? It sucks that she's now in a new long distance relationship when she said she didn't want to do a long distance relationship with you. That sucks, right? And also, it's not a reflection of you, and it doesn't provide any extra commentary about your breakup with her.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really tricky to find space for our hearts when there's not a lot of space for our minds and bodies, right? So the fact that you are still hanging out with her, you're still engaging in this really intense and great conversation with her about all of these different things, is really confusing to your poor little heart. Who isn't as capable of thinking rationally or creating sort of distance or making sure that things are properly compartmentalized, because our hearts are just expansive. They are just big and bringing things in and feeling all their feelings. And so sometimes what we have to do is we have to make sure that we are giving our hearts the amount of space that they need in order to be able to create the boundaries and the distance that they need to, knowing that this person is actively choosing not to be with you, right? Like, and I say that as blatantly as possible, as bald-faced as possible, because I want you to hear it and internalize it, right? This person is actively choosing not to be with you. So knowing that, how much love, time, attention, and energy are you giving to this person who is actively choosing not to be with you, right? I'm thinking about that conversation that we had with Virgie Tovar about like radical self-acceptance, part of which is waking up in the morning and saying things like, I am choosing to spend time with, to give love and energy to this person who is actively choosing not to be with me, right? And again, that doesn't need to be good or bad, right? Like maybe that is the choice that you want to make in this situation, and I'm not going to judge you for that. And I want you to say it out loud to yourself so that you can be intentional about the decisions that you're making in pursuit of this relationship with this person who's actively choosing not to be your partner, right? Who is actively choosing other people to be in partnership with. And I am sorry that I had to say it. Like I'm like starting to feel a deep remorse that I'm being like an asshole to poor.
No, we're in our rainbow
naive
tower.
Yeah, that's right. We're in a rainbow tower where it's really easy to look down and be like, I've seen what's happening here.
Yeah, we know better, as though we have never been in those trenches, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But actually, it's
remembering that I lived with my ex for 2 years. So like, I am not one to talk about this situation.
Our rainbow tower is just one of total denial. It's just like, it's like a fabricated tower, you know, like, and if we peek behind the curtain, we're just like sitting in the trenches with y'all. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I say this to kind of make you feel bad, like just a little, but in a way that's like meant to be helpful, because you deserve somebody who wants to be with you is at the end of the day, what I want to tell you. And you deserve somebody who wants to spend time with you, who wants to date you regardless of distance, and who wants to be in relationship with you and not with other people, unless that's the parameters of the relationship that you're getting into. And that is also fine. But you don't deserve to put all of this time and energy and love into somebody who's not going to show it back to you in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
Because you deserve much better than that.
Yeah. And honestly, like, you know, Sam and I talk so much about nuance, and we talk every situation down to its core, you know, and we make space for every complicated emotion. And also, this comes down to the fact that, like, if you hear anything, that we love you, but also that, like, if you can't handle being friends with somebody who dates other people, then maybe we're not ready to be friends yet. You know, that's that period. And that goes for all of our listeners who feel this way. That goes for me in the past. And I think that our emotions complicate things so much. We make them feel like this is a very complicated situation. And it is. Of course it is. Our feelings are so complicated and hard. And also, it sounds like it's hard to be her friend because you don't want to be your friend. You want to be your boyfriend. And Sam and I, you know, we make lots of jokes about exes, but like, we are friends with our exes. You know, we talked about it in the check-in topic, like our spouses are friends with their exes. And that is a part of life that is a beautiful, enriching part of life, right? And also sometimes those friendships take time to grow into the real thing and not just like a waiting room or a Band-Aid for what you want them to be. And you are the one that has to decide, like, am I ready for this? Am I ready to be your friend? Am I ready to hear her talk about her new boyfriend? Because that's what friends do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. I felt that remorse right there. I was like, am I being too
Exactly.
hard? I was like, is that what friends do? I don't know. Because I don't have any. It's all callbacks in this episode.
That's
Just
right.
kidding.
That's right.
I have friends, and their names are Sam and Spencer.
I was going to say, you got at least 2.
I got to shout out my friend Eric. He's like one of my only Albany friends, and he listens to this show religiously. And so then I know it's very cute. And
I'm so threatened by the fact that you have another friend.
You should be. You should absolutely be. But he listened to the show regularly, and heterosexual, engaged man listening to our show regularly. Very cute.
That.
Yeah, love that for us. So hi, Eric. That's all I wanted to say.
Hi, Eric. Nice to meet you.
All right, my darling, back to you, Naive Pie. We hope that this helps. We love you. We are sitting with you in the trenches of these feelings, and we want to make sure that you're protecting your heart. Is it safe for you to be friends with this person? What are you doing emotionally to prepare yourself for her moving on? And what are you doing to prepare yourself to open yourself up to other connections, to other potential out there?
Right.
Because there's somebody out there who's ready to love you really well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for writing.
We love you.
All right. Our third and final letter comes from Heartache, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from crying in the bathroom at work, which is just the saddest image that I can possibly come
and
up
also
with.
Deeply relatable.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Well, the bathroom of my work is
work.
my home.
I mean, same at this point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There were a number of times in the place where I used to work, there was like a non-gendered restroom on the 4th floor. And that was where everyone went to cry.
That was your tower. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, it was like collectively people on staff were like, yeah, I go to the 4th floor bathroom to cry. And it was like, me too, because no one can disturb you in there. Anyway.
I hope that is like the physical manifestation of our podcast. So like it is the non-gendered bathroom that people cry in, but like softer and warmer than that.
Yeah, absolutely. We should add that to the intro.
Yep, got it.
This is the Relationship Advice Podcast. That is also the 4th floor bathroom where you cry.
Okay, anyway.
All right. Dear Sierra and Sam, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the compassion.
First of all, thank you for doing it in that order. Because
I know. I was like, and I didn't switch it, which I usually do because I'm so used to saying it.
When people write Dear Sam and Sierra, damn it, Sierra and Sam, I say it the other way.
I know. All right. Dear Sierra and Sam, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the compassion, love, and affirmations you spread in the world. Listening to your podcast has helped me and countless others tremendously. And I honestly feel like y'all are my dear friends in real life.
We are.
I am a 28-year-old cishet woman, she, her, in a 7-year relationship with a man, he, him. Let's call him Evan. He proposed to me 2 years ago, and we were ecstatic, but decided to take it slow as we weren't comfortable planning a wedding during a pandemic. During this year, however, Evan has been struggling with his mental health and going through bouts of depression. Some days are better than others, but he's not always transparent when I try to check in. He has mentioned being bored at work, financially unstable, and feels like his passion for his favorite hobbies has grown stale. I've tried to talk him into going to therapy and have helped him look for low-cost options. Although he's mentioned that he'd consider going, he hasn't made any moves to do so. I want to help him and love him immensely, but know that as much as I want to, I can't provide him with everything that he needs to be happy. Most days are fine, and he seems to be able to keep his mental health pretty stable and otherwise cope. Other times, a petty argument can devolve quickly, and he lashes out at me or goes completely cold in silence. During one of these times, I decided to give my engagement ring back to him until we felt like we were in a healthier place to commit ourselves fully to one another. That said, it wasn't meant to be any type of break. We're still together, and we love each other very much. Personally, I feel fulfilled with the life that we've built. I have room to grow and a job I love. We have wonderful friends and live in a gorgeous little mountain town. We're healthy and privileged to have a safe, warm roof over our heads. More than that, I'm actually thriving. I'm making strides in both professional and personal. However, his low moods have started to really wear me down. He doesn't communicate if he needs attention or space, which often leaves me grasping at straws. I feel anxious when I can't help or feel like I'm making things worse. I find myself treading lightly about him to avoid setting him off. I can't fully celebrate my own successes without him being jealous. It's really hurtful that he can't be supportive after I've consistently been his cheerleader for so long. He even, in his own words, quote, finds others' happiness annoying. I totally get that toxic positivity is a thing, and I'm not trying to rub my joy in his face. I just want a partner that wants to see me happy. This isn't like him, and I miss the person that is so kind, affectionate, and easygoing. He recently told me that he thinks he wants to move to a different area of the country for a change in scenery and pursuit of rekindling his passions for travel and adventure. This shocked me as we've been looking to buy a house and settle down. I assume that this move doesn't include me, since I am teats dip...
One more time?
Sorry. Teats dip is what I almost said, which is just a very funny phrase. I assume that this move doesn't involve me since I am tits deep in my job and life in our current location, but I was too taken aback to actually ask. I can't tell if his depression is talking or if he's running away from his problems or if he's right and moving would give him a fresh start. I want what's best for him, but it breaks my heart to think that it might not involve me. I'm his first and only serious relationship he's ever been in, and I'm afraid he's only sticking around because it's all he knows. At the same time, I also feel angry that he can't or won't help himself and doesn't seem motivated to be a better partner. It takes a lot of vulnerability on my part to bring up these issues and honestly express my feelings, but it feels like talking to a brick wall. I can't stand the lack of reciprocal vulnerability, and maybe he's just protecting himself from even feeling worse by exposing his wounds. I guess my question boils down to this. How can I be more empathetic towards my partner while protecting my own peace? Am I centering myself in this situation? Do either of you recognize signs of codependency in this relationship? I feel like I can't truly be happy unless he is happy. How can I help my partner help himself?
Wow. Thank you so much for writing and for trusting us with this letter and for listening, Heartache. We are sorry you're crying in the bathroom in not a fun, just breakup way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say from my perspective, again, up in this rainbow tower, it feels like you are doing all of the right work to make space for his mental health, to make space for his growth and the fact that, you know, people ebb and flow and that, you know, we don't just, when somebody's going through a hard time, we don't want to automatically say like, well, this is what I need and these are my boundaries and like, fuck your mental health, you know? And also, you know, Sam and I in the past have said a behavior can be both understandable and unacceptable. And to me, it feels like you're doing that work. You are validating his feelings a ton. You're validating this season of his life. You are accommodating his outburst and his sadness, and you are censoring your joy so that he is not triggered or doesn't have a bad response to it. And I just want to validate all the work you're doing to keep this relationship going, to keep it nice and neat and pretty and polite. And I also want to say that work is probably really tiring and isolating and hard, which is what is making you cry in the bathroom, right? Is that like you're not being yourself. It's not that I see codependency in this. I see somebody working really hard to try to make this work without the support of her other acting partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you talk about how you don't want to be doing toxic positivity, right? Like, you know that that's a thing and that you don't want to subject him to that. And I want to reframe what I think you're saying toxic positivity is, right? Expressing your joy about the work that you're doing or the things that you're experiencing isn't toxic positivity, right? Like that is just experiencing joy. Toxic positivity would be saying, oh, I know you're depressed, but you have so much to be happy about, right? Toxic positivity would be, I know you're depressed, but this is going to be such a good experience for you because you are going to come out on the other end stronger, right? Toxic positivity would be like, oh, I know that you're going through a hard time, but this is going to be such a great lesson for you. There's so much you can learn from this experience, right? Like this idea of denying people their experience with the sadness, the issues that they're going through by constantly trying to say, that's not real. That's not real. It's actually a good thing. You're just not seeing it as a good thing. So I think that you are justified in wanting to be in a relationship where you can express joy about the things that you're doing and have it be received by your partner, right? Like, I don't want you to have to continue to hide your joy because it's going to be triggering for him.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm working on in therapy that I haven't been super successful about, but maybe it'll be helpful for you, is my therapist has really encouraged me to take some of my anger, frustration out at the mental illness and not at the person, right? And I'm talking specifically about my relationship with my dad, who struggled with significant mental illness, and it came out in ways that were deeply unhealthy for him and for my family. And it's hard for me because I am really angry at him for the things that he did. And I also know in my head that he didn't do them. The mental illness did them, right? Like he wasn't choosing or trying to be an awful person. He was sick, right? Like his brain was not working the way that he wanted it to work. And so finding a place to put that anger has been challenging for me because it's like, well, I'm really angry with him. And also I know that he didn't choose this thing. It's not like he was a bad person. So my therapist and I are working on how can I channel that anger into the mental illness? So as you're thinking about how you can interact with your partner, recognizing the fact that like he is your partner, like he's in his body doing things that are deeply upsetting to you, and trying to create some separation between that and saying, I know I'm not angry with him. I'm really angry with this illness that has made itself known in our lives, right? That is causing this type of situation to be happening, because it can help theoretically. I don't know. I'll tell you if I ever get there, but it can help assuage some of the guilt that you might feel about being angry at the situation, because you're justified in being angry at it, right? You're justified in the fact that like, this is causing your partner to not treat you super well, right? And it's causing you to have to walk on eggshells around him so that you don't trigger one of his moods. And it's not your partner that's doing it. It's the mental illness that's doing it. So that's an offering for you to see if it might help provide some clarity around how you want to move forward with this. But I will say that it's one of the most challenging things for me in my experience of loving somebody who has been deeply mentally ill is that the illness itself prevents the treatment of the illness, right? Because like the depression itself is causing him to think things about himself that are not allowing him to go to therapy, right? Like the not wanting to do basic tasks, which is like part of depression, is also making it so that list of finding a therapist is something that he doesn't want to do. Right. And like that sort of cycle of behavior, that reinforcing cycle is like just so challenging to be witness to and to experience as the intimate partner of this person. So I don't know what to do with that information. I just want to say that like I see you in the challenge and frustration of it. Well,
actually, I had a note that says side note about therapy. That I know the emotional labor of trying to support someone to go seek help. I also know the financial toll, the barriers that we have in our society to get mental health support. And also like just wanted to make space on our show that we are constantly talking about therapy on, about like how annoying it is to find a therapist.
Oh, absolutely.
You literally
it's
Google,
such a frustrating
like,
process.
It's so frustrating. It's as awkward and uncomfortable as dating, except for without like the social, like without acknowledging that it's like dating and awful.
And there's you're paying through the teeth for it. So.
There's no like Tinder that I can like swipe on. And
if there is, like, let us know and we'll share that resource.
Yeah. I maybe just like for a transparency thing, kind of like the vasectomy, but the vasectomy conversation, but much smaller. Just I'm on the market right now for a new therapist, and the process literally looks like opening up Google, going through profiles like that you don't know are active, or they don't really paint a picture, trying to get a vibe for somebody, reaching out, hearing back from some of them, but not all of them. Sometimes that requires like making a phone call, leaving a voicemail, and then, something that's also hard for people who are struggling with depression, like following up if they do reach back out to you, like if they respond to your phone call or,
Yep.
And then I'm not at this stage yet, but I have been in the past, like actually meeting with somebody and doing a couple sessions with them and deciding whether or not if they can help you along this journey or not, because not everybody is for us, as we know. And that's not even touching on the financial aspect. I mean, I feel really lucky to have insurance that gives me a reasonable mental health copay, But even finding that out is complicated anyway.
For sure. No, and I also love the fact that like you have in the first two sessions, you have to like sort of figure out whether or not this person is for you. And also in those first two sessions, you have to tell them all of the things about
everything
you.
about yourself. It's just like dating, really. It's like, are we going to vibe, or
For
not?
sure. For sure.
Anyway. Okay. So back to the letter writer though, because I think that we're not, especially in a long relationship like this, we're trying to navigate, like, how do I make space for my partner's, for my partner, period, for their mental health, for, as you're saying, like the actual mental illness. And then how do you also make space for my needs? What am I getting support from my partner? Do we have the same shared goals and visions that we used to have? And if not, is that the mental illness that's disrupting that? Or do we just need to shift the way we're talking about ourselves or whatnot?
Yep.
And I'm thinking about, like, one of the things that I can say is a boundary from me, or something that like would be deeply triggering, or like, or whatever. For me, that I see in your letter that I was like, yeah, that sucks. Like that, I feel for you. And that is these where he'll go quiet on you, silent treatment or whatever. These small arguments turn into bigger things. That happens, especially in long relationships. I get that. And also, I wonder if you can speak to your partner in a way in which your security, your sureness about what you want, for what you're willing to accept for yourself, will help like bring him some sort of clarity, at least in how he can treat you. Meaning, if you go to him and say, I've noticed some of our arguments sort of devolve into you not speaking to me, or you feeling like you want to pull back, or whatever. This is not working for me. I'm hoping this can go differently. The next time we have an argument, what is something that you and I can do together so that we have a different outcome, so that you don't pull back, Yep. I've been like reading a lot about like how to deal with toddlers in preparation for the next couple of years of my life. And one of the things they say is like, don't try to reason when somebody's in a temper tantrum. I'm not comparing your adult partner to a toddler or anything like that. But I am saying us, when we are emotionally charged, when we are in conflict, when we have all of our adrenaline going and our feelings are up, 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 it's harder for us to access like our calm mindfulness, right? Like the strategies, right? You're not going to, when I'm panicked and you tell me to take a deep breath, I'm going to be like, fuck you, right? But, later when I'm calm, when you and your partner are not in conflict and you go to him and say, I want to create a strategy. So like, maybe we can employ something differently. If you were going to say to me, like, the next time you get upset, I'm going to rub your arm. And that's my code for you that like, we need to do some mindful breathing, right? Like that might help me in the future access a different coping mechanism, a different strategy. Like,
Yep.
So I am wondering if you can basically, I see all the work you're doing in this letter, and I want you to be able to go to your partner in one way or another and say, I need this to go differently. I'm losing you. You're losing me.
Yep.
How can we get back together? And because that's the truth. That's what I see in this letter. You're losing each other. And it's not because you're not empathizing enough. It's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's the course that's happening, and something needs to be disrupted. Something needs to, discomfort is our opportunity to change, right? And
yes.
I think that can happen. It just is going to have to require some disruption.
Absolutely. And you are creating a lot of space for the reality of his mental illness. And I think that that's beautiful and wonderful and something that you should be doing, right? Because again, he's not necessarily choosing this type of behavior, right? It is a symptom of, an expression of the mental illness that he's dealing with. And that doesn't necessarily mean that all of that behavior is acceptable. And so there is a place where it is, yep, I accept that this is happening for this particular reason, and I can't do this anymore, right? Like, and you can't disappear for days, right? And you can't tell me that you want to leave and that like or that you're like going to pick up and move, right? Like, because we're buying a house. Like this is the agreed upon thing that we're doing, right? Like we've been talking about this, we've been planning this, and now you're disrupting that thing. So there is a space that's really challenging to find for sure, but there is a space between understanding and compassion and recognizing that like this isn't necessarily something that he's choosing, and saying like, and it still needs to be different.
Right.
And being somebody who loves somebody with mental illness is really challenging because finding that line can be so difficult. And it's often us who are enabling the type of behavior that makes the situation worse too, right? And that's really challenging to think about. And sometimes the thing that we have to do is to say like, hey, I've been allowing you to treat me like this, and now I'm not going to.
Yes.
So you need to start making some different decisions about how you're going to treat this thing that I know is causing you to feel this way, but that is also deeply impacting and hurting me.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That is such a hard thing to do, because I can tell that you are so full of love for this man and so understanding of the fact that this mental illness is not speaking for him. It's just speaking through him. And that is so challenging. So I don't envy you, but I do want to say like, you have the right to create some space for yourself in this relationship. It is not your purpose in life to make this man not depressed, right? It is not your purpose in life to make him happy or make him okay or protect him from the mental illness that is causing him this pain. It's not. And I know that's really hard because like I spent 30 years of my life doing that. And so I deeply feel for you. But that's not what you are here for. And so something has to change. because this isn't sustainable for either of you. And so
Right.
the question for you is, what is the thing that you're going to do to help him recognize or see that the fact that he's leaving this untreated is deeply impacting you and your relationship?
Yeah. And also then accepting that you cannot make him do those things.
Yep.
Even if the delivery of your request is perfect, even if you articulate your boundaries perfectly, even if you empathize with every single one of his actions and his choices and his and how this mental illness is manifesting, you cannot make someone heal themselves. You cannot make someone treat you differently by being perfect for them.
Yep.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
I'll say from my own experience as somebody who has mental illness too, that like the thing that got me to go to therapy was realizing that the people in my life weren't able to help me.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Literally. It was me being like, the way that this person is responding to me isn't helping, or the path that I'm going on isn't working. And so it had to be like, okay, well, then something has to be different and I need something else.
Yeah.
So it can be really helpful to have somebody say like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wish that I could help you, but I can't do it. To maybe be the wake up call that he needs. But again, like Sierra said, it's also very possible that that's not going to do it, right? Because you can't control him. You can't control this illness that he's dealing with. The only thing that you can do is control how you are responding to it and the things that you are allowing to happen because you love him so much and because you want to take such good care of him.
Yeah. I want to share one little micro story that kind of connects everything, that could illustrate how one person's like security and one person's boundaries can help be the thing that pushes somebody else to help themselves. Like, as Sam was saying, like realizing that like other people can't help you, or that you can't treat people this way forever, or to push somebody into growth, but like really into their own agency. I was thinking about the check-in topic, the jealousy, or like how to deal with friends that are exes or whatever. In the past, like when I have felt insecure or brought up sort of like a passive aggressive thing, like, oh, you're hanging out with so-and-so or whatever, whenever my hurt manifested in a way that was not in alignment with who I wanted to be as a partner, but was more in alignment with like my pain and my history and whatever. My wife in the past has responded from a place of security of like, these people are my friends and I want to maintain those good friendships in my life. And I deserve to have friends and I'm trustworthy. You know, like she has met me with such security and surety of herself and surety of like what she believes she deserves, that all of a sudden I realize like, oh, I got to get my shit together. Like I can't act out my insecurities on her anymore. I need to deal with them internally. And I don't mean that to say that like we don't need other people or anything like that, but it all of a sudden I realized that like that wasn't going to fly here anymore. Does that make sense? Yeah. Is that like a weird thing to share?
It absolutely makes sense. No, and I'm thinking about like my own experience with my mental health. It literally took my parents being like, this is beyond us.
Yes.
For me to actually seek help.
Yes.
They had to say like, you can't call us every night.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, then what do I do? And they were like, we'll help you find a therapist for sure. Yeah. But like, this isn't sustainable for us. Yeah. And like, we're not helping you.
Yeah.
And then like, and them being so sure of the fact that it wasn't working. Yeah. It was like, oh shit. And they did it in a way that wasn't like, you're too much for us, or like you're somehow like so broken. We can't fix you. Right. They were like, we just can't do this anymore. Like we can't, like we're not capable.
Yes.
And so you need somebody who's going to be able to help you figure this out, and that has training and that's going to be able to do it. But like, we can't do this for you anymore.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it was in my silly example, you know, it was, my wife was so sure of what she deserved and also affirming of me, but also made it very clear that like, she's not going to make space for she's not going to cater to that irrational thought. You know what I mean? And that she can't help me make me feel better about our relationship more than she already does in excess, you know, made me realize it was I don't know. It was my responsibility to seek change within myself. And so I hope, letter writer, you take Sam and I's examples just to keep practicing that empathy, keep extending love to your partner. I see a future for, when I said before that you two are losing each other, I just meant that this is a disruptible path. You can have surety in what you deserve, the vision that you want for your relationship, for your life. You should have surety in what you deserve to be celebrated for. Your light doesn't diminish his pain. And I'm confident that there's a place in which you guys can find that new space together, but it has to be new. It has to be disrupted. You have to say, I can't be your Band-Aid anymore. I can't lessen my shine for you anymore. And I want to keep this journey going together. We can't keep going this way.
Yep.
All right, my darling. I hope this helps.
Thank you so much for writing. We love you. All right, everyone, this brings us to our blind date segment. This is when we try and set you up with something we think you're really going to like. This week, our blind date is...
All right, so it is a show that was recommended to me. Remember last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like sweating about how hot I thought the male lead in Bridgerton is. Jonathan Byers, I think is his name, or Jonathan something.
Bailey.
Yeah, Bailey, thanks. And our lovely Just Break Up listeners like accepted my weird ramblings. And also one of them messaged us on Instagram and was like, if you loved him in this show, you should watch the show Crashing, that was written and starred in by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the person who's responsible for Fleabag, which is so good, which is also like in this general recommendation, and Killing Eve.
Yes.
And this show is 1 season long. It like came out in 2016. There's like 6 episodes and it's so fucking funny. My wife and I were like laughing out loud, and it's sexy and cute and chaotic. And we watched it in like 2 nights when the baby was sleeping. It was like such fun, sexy adult time, you know, without the baby, watching TV like on 2 different ends of the couch because we're exhausted. Anyway, it was very charming. And I just like legitimately loved the recommendation, and loved that a listener was like, oh, you were turned on by this Victorian era or like period gay man. He's also in this show.
I appreciate the recommendation too, because I'm going to watch that now.
Okay. And there's like some like frustrated sexuality. Maybe his character is straight, but is actually gay. You'll see.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It's so hot. And also, oh my God, he does this thing that is so offensive and so attractive in one of the last episodes. And when you watch it, you'll know what it is. How about that? How about that for a plug?
Okay. This is just becoming a Jonathan Bailey stan podcast.
Yes,
so
it is. It is.
We're no more relationship advice.
He's
just
also
Jonathan
like
Bailey.
offensive and chaotic in this show, but you learn to appreciate the offensive chaoticness. Anyway.
Okay, great.
So it's called Crashing. It's on Netflix. It's 1 season long, so already mourn it. Like, no, it's going to be like a quick, fun fix, and
sure.
never to be made again.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Please remember to follow and subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. And okay, everyone, you can. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Just Break Up Pod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to follow and subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And consider supporting us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode. And if you support us for $10 a month, you will also get access to our monthly live on Patreon, which this month will be on June 22nd.
There you go. You got it.
Great. At 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Correct.
Do the rest of the math yourself.
Fuck everybody else.
This literally keeps the mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music recording and producing all magical things by our good friend Spencer Wirth-Davis, a.k.a. Big Cats. Make sure to check out his most recent podcast, Finding Quantum Quest. And remember, you can have empathy and accountability at the same time. You can honor and make space for other people's feelings as well as celebrate yourself. Your shine does not diminish anyone else's experience, and your hurt isn't diminished by other people's success. And if all else fails,
just break up.